So a year ago, we started doing these videos where Pete analyzed my crits and road races, and I got a lot better and it helped. Now, this year, we're doing this for mountain biking, and I've got Jonathan Lee with me. Thank you, Jonathan.
Happy to be here.
I'm about 10 clicks down from where I was on the road starting, and I didn't start very well on the road. This is going to be an embarrassing video, so...
It'll be a great video.
Let's just show this beginning again, because I think we just saw it. So... couple things. One, I don't know what it is, but my skewer or my through axle was not tightened all the way in. I almost died. This is scary. Me and bolts. I don't know. Like the other one was me just reading the wrong instructions. This was me actually forgetting something, and then I started taking a drink, and the race goes off, and then I go, uh-oh, and now I am in the back.
This was my first point. I was like, what happened on the line? Get focused. So thank you, Chaz, TrainerRoad user, friend of the podcast, for saving your life and fixing that with the skewer. But so can we rewind it to the start one more time, actually? Cool.
Third time watching this. It hurts.
So Chaz there fixing it. Good man. So first of all, what made you line up here?
I was late.
You were late. Okay.
Yep.
Makes sense. Because usually when I line up for a race, what I want to do is I try to get as far as I can to the front, because that kind of can let you sag a start in some cases, or just give you a good opportunity to really be in the front.
I did the opposite, right? So I have to put out, 700, 800, 900 watts here to catch up to the group, which is not good.
Starting in a hole, right?
Yeah, I'd rather be off the front, if anything, right, with that same power.
Yeah, and so now you also come into this, and even though it's a really long straightaway, this is putting you on the outside for the first turn. So in many cases, that would be bad, because you'll have to fight for position. But in this case, actually, check this out. Really clever job on going outside, and there's a little bit of a berm there. So I'm going to rewind that, and we'll pause just coming into the first turn so then people can see what we're looking at here. You actually coming in on this outside line, if you look, you have a clear track in front of you. So I'm stopped just as we can kind of see the entrance of the turn opening up with those orange cones. So this is actually kind of a good spot to be. Sometimes it's great to fight for the inside. On this one, the reason it's good to fight for the outside is because the outside is actually a really good line. So you've caught up to people with hard effort. We'll go ahead and play right now.
So the one good thing I did was on accident.
Yeah, and you went outside right there with that bank. I would have gone into that and probably not even let off.
Yeah, I could have probably hit that 10 miles per hour faster, right?
And just slingshotted around a bunch of people.
There's just some leaves. Right there, I almost knocked my tire. I hit the curb weird. It was bad. And the camera is going to get covered a little bit, but they're still going to have great takeaways.
For sure. We'll be able to kind of get what's going on, but we'll be able to see the takeaways. You brought up a good point with the leaves. Course recon would have really helped on that first turn. Looking at that first turn and thinking, what are all my possible lines? That's super crucial for every first turn in cross-country racing. And then where those leaves are, go and ride on those leaves to make sure there's no holes underneath them.
Yeah. I tried to sneak by right there, that guy. He got pinched me, and I still have marks on my arms from those branches.
So if the branches hit your bike, that means they definitely hit you on the body.
Yeah.
Once again, course recon. I always try to look at the first, I think, what are the first 2 minutes going to shake down like? Because that's a crucial point of an XC race, the first 2 minutes. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a bit, but that section I would have looked ahead and definitely tried to look at that line to make sure that I had the best avenue going through.
I was panicking, just want to move forward. So this is like the only straight flat part of the whole course.
Yeah.
Leading into single track. And I was like, I'm going to pass all these suckers.
This is actually a great idea. So 2 minutes in is usually where people start to hit the wall. Like physiologically speaking, we start to talk about a lot of changeover points on what's happening with people, and they start to feel the debt that they've incurred from going too hard. And this course is great because it actually opens up into a passing opportunity at 2 minutes, which is awesome. Usually it narrows into single track, so you really have to fight and then get into there. You did the great, and also you're a bigger rider, you have more weight behind you, higher threshold. Super smart move to get into this position and then already start to make up positions.
So there's a group ahead of us, and this guy was pulling me, and I said, see you later.
Yeah, because you were faster than him, right?
Well, I think he beat me overall, but yeah, at this point I was.
Exactly.
So I'm trying to get in the back of this group going into the single track, and this is the back of the lead group right here.
And this is a super good point. I like how you said trying to get to the back of the next group. The mindset, and we'll hit on this over and over for the rest of the race, the mindset that you have to have is moving forward at all times. It's not necessarily pedaling as hard as you can. You should just always be looking for chances to move forward, because other people are panicked and overwhelmed by how hard the effort is. So you just have to look beyond that, and you have to constantly be looking for what's the next rider I can catch.
The other annoying thing is, like, so this was greasy, and my new skills. I've never ridden grease, and I was pretty good, and I was actually having to brake more than I had to. But later on, I like had my front tire slip out. I didn't crash, but that just changed my whole race.
Shakes your confidence once it goes once.
Any tips on getting around that?
Yeah, so I think that one thing I would have done for sure coming into this is I would have dropped my PSI at least 1 whole PSI, maybe even 1.5.
Yeah.
So for me, a rider of around 150 pounds, just under that, I'd probably be running somewhere around like 18 PSI in the front and 17 in the rear. I'm running 25 millimeter internal width wheels, and I'd be running 2.2 tires, 2.3 tires. So
I was 23 and 25 at 190.
So yeah, I probably would have dropped down to 21, somewhere around there. It would have really helped. Whenever I see grease, I think drop it down, right? So one of the things that you did there, I like how you were hitting some puddles, dodging others, and on little spots like this, those little line choices totally matter in the beginning because it saves you a couple bike lengths, and that. Once again, when we're talking about everybody going as hard as they can, every little bit helps.
Yeah, when you hit a puddle, it's like it sucks your wheel back. It's like it's grabbing you.
Yep, it can slow you down. It can also really mess up your drivetrain. And if it gets it full of grit, then you have a grindy drivetrain that won't shift right and slow you down for the rest of the race. So sometimes it's good to dodge puddles, but then also it always matters on what's the ride around like, right? Because if the ride around isn't like that or isn't a good option, then you want to skip it.
I wish I would have wiped the camera.
So this is an interesting point here. You dropped in behind the fast group, right? And you're stuck behind this rider, and you sit here, which this is going to be, spoiler alert, kind of the rest of the video that we'll cover because we're just going to cover the first 10 minutes of this race. But the aggression is dropped. That said, like in this little section where it's a little bit uphill and it looks harder, coming into this before that, your aggression kind of dropped. And it's really tempting once you catch up to a rider to just kind of be like, okay, I'm feeling it, and you kind of just settle in behind them. But you should set kind of a rule for the first 10 minutes of the race. Don't be content with where you're at. Always be looking ahead. And when you fall in behind somebody, that little bit of rest that you're getting, if you just go a little bit harder to get in front of another person and just tick them off like dominoes, it's going to benefit you a lot later on, especially because if you look at this rider, which is obviously very hard to see, they're on a single speed.
Yes, I saw that later on the climb, and I was like, uh-oh.
First time you see a single speed rider, whenever you see them and you're on a geared bike, get around that rider. The reason for that isn't because they're going to be slow. It's because their pacing is going to be totally different.
Yeah, it was so he would slow down too much in the corners and then like kind of grind out.
Yes.
I didn't realize that until like when I did pass them. I was like, whoa, bro, you're on a single speed. Good job.
Yeah. And then so you find yourself behind the rider and you're like, why is this so hard? I'm faster than this person. Because the fact is, if you're on somebody's wheel this close, chances are you are as fast, if not faster than that person. So you should get in front of that person. You kind of have to, in XC racing, I like to think of it as like placing bets on yourself. You always have to favor yourself. And you always have to think, I'm faster than this person ahead of me. If you're not, you pass them and they get by you again, that's okay. But at least you got in front of them and gave yourself the chance. You have to believe that you're faster than every person and take the little risks. Like I saw you look into the outside there. That was good.
Yeah.
And we're going to rewind it here in just a little bit. But that's a key thing, especially when you get caught behind a rider that isn't going to pace well or descend well or do something that's going to throw off the normal pace that you'd be able to cover. So let's rewind it here just about, I don't know, maybe 20 seconds or so. I want to see when you got to this point where you were kind of looking around this rider because you started catching another rider that was slower. This is always like the worst scenario to be in, and there's a couple things that you can do. So the reason that it's bad is because when you catch, when you're behind a rider that you're faster than, and then you have another rider that's slower in front of that, it has a synergistic effect that's negative on your speed. It slows you down more than just catching two riders independently many times because everybody gets bottlenecked, and then it really slows down. So the first thing that I would do is when I see, obviously, try to make the moves earlier so you don't get into this position. But once you're here, I would vocalize your position and your intent to pass to the person in front of you and the next person. Say, two riders behind, I'd like to get by when I can, right?
What if they don't get over?
Then you have to force the issue. Forgive me. And when I say force the issue, it doesn't mean that you have to take them out necessarily. Necessarily. But sometimes it does. So ways that you can force the issue. First of all, remind them again verbally in a nice way, right? Secondly, ride their wheel. And what I mean by that is be extremely close to them. This is hard and it can make you crash, but it really puts a lot of pressure on the rider. And how you just move to the outside like that, I thought that was really good. That's called showing them a wheel, so to speak. So when you come into turns, come in on the inside and show your front wheel to them. and do that repeatedly. When you come into turns, even sometimes if like I can afford it in terms of speed, I'll lock up my brakes really quick, and it really puts a lot of pressure on that rider. They'll make mistakes, they won't want to deal with that pressure, and they'll want to get out of the way. You can take it to the next level by buzzing tires, which is always a risky move, but that definitely gets the point across.
I buzzed a few on accident.
Yeah.
Because you get so close.
Yep, and what I mean by that is you run your tire into the back tire of the other. However, you do not run into them. It's just you basically are match speed, and you just, the knobs rub and it spooks people, and then they'll want to get out of the way. The final way that you do it is you simply have to make the pass happen. And what I mean by that is be willing to go off course, expend a bit of extra power, but find any avenue so that this one you have soft, wet grass, it'll be really slow. But that doesn't mean that you can come into a turn, because you can tell that this person descends or corners pretty slow. That doesn't mean that you can't come into a turn faster than them and just go way inside. If there's no tape, it's fair game. Go way inside and just blow through on the inside on that rider. So I think that that's kind of like a good point to make. And whenever you have two riders in front of you, that's when you absolutely have to make sure that it's clear that you need to get by.
Yeah.
So like anytime that you spend behind a rider, and once again, when you're this close to him, you're faster than this person right here.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of like a safe zone to be descending. And if you're still staying within that and catching him on turns, you should be thinking, okay, I'm going to blow by on the next turn, and kind of set those deadlines. Be like, next turn, I'm not going to have this happen again.
I remember thinking that I thought this is a comfortable, like warm. It's like being in the Peloton. It's like this feels comfortable and nice right here. So I didn't push it, but I should be pushing it, because I bet I could have been much farther ahead if I would have been aggressive for these last 5 minutes than kind of been not aggressive.
And the hard thing is every time you get to a hill, because he's a single speeder, it puts you on the limit, because like you're having to gas and brake so much coming through everything.
Yeah.
It's basically your pacing is just off. So the other thing too is you're coming into some of these turns and you're doing late braking into them. So you're coming in and kind of like jamming right up to his wheel and late braking, but kind of like the sprinter's gap on the road. If you are for some reason stuck behind a person, you can't get around them right then, I actually don't recommend charging up onto their wheel too fast into a turn, and I actually recommend early braking and then coasting into the turn to try to maintain more momentum.
So I have to pedal out of the corner?
Exactly. It'll smooth it out a little bit more. So right here, I bet that you could already be 30 seconds to a minute up on this rider if you would just change the perspective of basically not falling into the warm, safe place and knowing that for the first 10 minutes, it's going to hurt, and it should hurt, but I should always be making forward progress.
Is that concrete, the road section, if I would have pedaled like for 5 extra seconds, that could have been totally different then.
You probably could have gotten past this rider even then, and then
that's what I mean, yeah.
Who knows what could have happened, right?
Yeah.
Because you ended up 4th, I think, in this race.
Yeah, yes, but by a long shot.
Still.
This is 4th in my age groups. This is their aid expert division, which is like a Cat 1 race.
Cat 1, 30 to 39.
I was way off the pace for the overall winners.
Sure.
I have a lot of improvement to make.
But I'm really impressed at, first of all, how you're rolling the turns. You're going smoother through the turns, so that's really good. The only thing that I think, at least that I pick up from these first 10 minutes like we're watching here, is the urgency that needs to get in place. And it's less about pedaling as hard as you can. It's more about basically looking at what the rider is doing in front of you, how that doesn't match with you, and then just playing your advantage. So going faster into the turns because you can hold more speed. Going faster into climbs because since he's on, or faster in flat sections since he's on a single speed.
Yeah.
Constantly looking around the rider, not looking at the rider, right? Positioning yourself so that even when you're really close on their wheel, be just offset enough so that you can make a move when they do make a mistake, right? So when I'm following behind that person, my tire's really close to them, but I'm always ready to go left or right. And if a turn's coming up, I'm always ready to go inside, not outside. Because if they fall, then I'll get stuck outside. If they fall and then I'm inside, I can make a pass.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm doing this next same course coming up this weekend.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I think we run the opposite way, but it should still be very similar. I'm going to use these tips.
Yes.
And I'm going to blow up at 12 minutes.
Just
kidding. No, not that. Then, actually, that's the last question.
Yep.
So I go aggressive for 10. Mm-hmm. Then what do I do? Settle into like a tempo? Because it's like a 2-hour race?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Everybody else is going to do the same thing, right? They're going to settle in. And right now, this person's settling in and you're stuck on their pace.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Like, you go really hard. You'll put yourself in some sort of debt, but you'll improve your positioning to such a degree that you'll be in the right spot where you need to be. And when that happens, basically what I see in terms of power, and we can even look at your power file here and we'll be able to see the first 2 minutes were really hard, right? Like you went out hard, you ended up going, like you can see right on the start, just big surges and spikes, which is common to see for an XC race, right? But then if you look at it too in a different light, the first 10 minutes are still pretty dang hard. I know that's well below your threshold, but all the coasting time and everything else.
Mountain biking is different too. And there's like a little descent in there, but yeah.
Yeah. So this is like a key thing, like on the first 10 minutes, you can see how surgy they are. And this is the descent, obviously. So that drops down there, sure. But you can see all those surges. Those surges are likely going to be there in the first 10 minutes, but I would expect to see a bit higher tide, kind of like a smoother power output in general.
Not so much on and off.
Yeah, that's at least what I see with higher end riders with their power profiles. They tend to look like they do have spikes, but in between it sits a little higher, and the spikes are probably going to be less severe.
That's probably because I wasn't passing people, right? I just kind of had I got in that warm comfort zone of being behind people.
If you surge, then you're in the comfort area. Surge, comfort area.
The other thing I notice is I feel like I surge too much out of corners. So if we use this interval search feature, I looked at this earlier, and if I do 400 watts, how many times did I do it for 10 seconds? If I search on this, I did it 100 times.
Which is a lot.
That's a lot during a 2-hour race.
Because your threshold is roughly what?
342, I think. Yeah, 342.
So that's a hard effort.
Yep. And then here, if I go, how many times did I do 500 watts for 5 seconds and search on this? Whoops, wrong button. 64 times.
Yeah,
and that's getting into, that's well within anaerobic territory. And doing that so many times, like by the end of the race, I start to get cooked. Why am I doing that?
Yeah, I think it's because of so you mentioned earlier, once you lost the front end once, then you got nervous the rest of the time. So really what that means to me is you're going to kill your momentum a lot because coming into turns, you don't have confidence in your front end. As a result, you'll slow down excessively or you'll completely kind of stall your momentum coming into turns. So really it looks like to me, like speed is also kind of an important thing to look at. You'll kind of have to look at it at like very higher resolution. But if you are dropping your speed a ton coming into every turn, you're going to see a power spike coming out of it. And the bad thing is it compounds because then once you do it once, then you end up doing it more and you get frustrated and you push harder.
And you get more tired, you go slower.
You go slower every time, even though you feel like you're pushing just as hard.
It's a double hit, right?
It is. So it's really about, in those first 10 minutes, it's you put yourself sure in a bit of debt, but then after that, it's really about smoothing things out. You'll see a whole lot more sweet spot riding. And even then, you'll come into a race and you'll find yourself in a spot after those first 10 minutes where it actually might make more sense to just not spike as hard and then just focus on staying in sweet spot a little longer, rolling your turns with a bit more momentum, less braking, kind of like almost like driving an EV, just like less brake, more gas.
Maybe on that fourth lap, then I would have had more energy.
Oh,
and
it
gone
would have
faster.
been huge. Makes a big difference.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm so excited to use these tips on my next race, and we'll see how that one goes with hopefully a cleaner camera. It's not going to rain.
Hopefully. It'll be great.
Thank you.
If you like that video, you can click down below, give us a thumbs up, and leave us a comment to let us know what we did well, or maybe leave a comment to let us know what you would have done better.
Yeah, if you have any tips for me, please put them down there. And I know I should tie my bolt more. I think I'm going to get a tattoo, like right on my hand. Check your bolts.
Check your bolts.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good, right?
That'd be a good one. Yep. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out the playlist for more race analysis videos, and head to TrainerRoad.com if you want to get faster. It works. That's how Nate's getting so fast.
And your help. Wait till I get the skills down.
It's true. Yeah, he's going to be winning everything.
I got to lose some weight, though.
Yes.
Said every cyclist ever.
Don't we all?